All right, good evening, everybody. David Paul with you. We're live in the KHOU 11 Weather Center. I wanted to step in and give you a tropical update. If you've been on social media, if you've been watching the news and weather reports the past couple of days, especially today, you've probably seen a few computer model runs in the tropical Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico that may have raised your eyebrows just a little bit, especially for the Texas coast, folks on the Louisiana coast, folks here in Houston, Galveston. We may have impacts from a tropical system of one strength or another as we head into the second half of the coming weekend and early next week. I'm going to show you the big picture, and then we're going to focus in on what this means for the Houston area. We'll look at a couple of different scenarios that may play out. There are currently no named systems out there, but there are 3 disturbances that we are tracking. So the potential for 3 systems to form is with us. One of those is in the Caribbean, and it's likely to move and develop as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico, and that's the one that really has our attention here in Houston. So where are we this season? Well, Anna, Bill, Claudette, Danny, Elsa, Fred, Grace, Henri. Next name on the list is Ida, then Julian, then Kate. By this time last year, however, we already had the M-named storm. So compared to last year, which was an all-time record year, since records have been kept, we're behind on that, but still this year is above normal, trending well above normal. So here are the 3 systems that we're watching, potential tropical systems. Again, the next 3 names on the list, Ida, Julian, and Kate. This spot, which is here, has a 70% chance for developing in the next 5 days, but it's likely to end up over the open and North Atlantic and not impact any landmass, at least not the United States. This spot off the coast of Africa has a 30% chance for developing, but it too looks likely to stay over the open water, at least for the foreseeable future. It's this spot developing in the Caribbean that, as it moves west, has a decent chance of developing here in the Western Caribbean and the Gulf, 60% chance. That has our full attention, and I'll give you a complete update on that as we move along. First of all, steering currents, big picture, global picture, northern hemisphere, jet stream well to the north. However, we are in the process of changing seasons. As we head into September, that's meteorological fall, or the beginning of meteorological fall, even though it doesn't say it on the calendar. And what happens is we begin to see more of these troughs, these dips in the jet stream. This is the wind pattern at 34,000 feet. These troughs, as you may remember, as they dip down, can grab these developing systems in the Atlantic and pull them northward and basically act like a broom and sweep them out to sea before they can threaten the east coast of the United States. So that's likely to happen. The storm track is likely to pull what develops here northward as that trough enters the central North Atlantic going into the 31st of August. And then going into the 3rd of September, another deep trough sets up off the east coast. So if something gets under that first trough, it's likely to be steered northward by the second trough. So at the moment, I don't see a threat to the east coast. Here are the spaghetti plots on these 2 systems out here in the open Atlantic, and you can see how they curve. This one loops around, then curves back to the north as they're grabbed by those approaching troughs. So those Atlantic systems, although they may get named, they may become hurricanes, they're on the back burner because of those troughs. This one in the Caribbean is ducking underneath those troughs, and so this one is likely to continue on its westerly track, and computers suggest that it is going to continue to develop. This one officially at the moment has a 60% chance of developing into a depression or a tropical storm over the next 5 days. That's from the National Hurricane Center, and computer models agree. Now at the moment, this has not been labeled as an invest, which means the Hurricane Center spaghetti plots are not running on this at the moment. So we're leaning heavily on 2 models, the American model, the GFS, and the European model. And we're going to run both of those for you, and you'll see that there's a large amount of uncertainty in the eventual outcome of this system. So here's the GFS. This is the American model, and it on Saturday has some sort of low pressure forming here in the Western Caribbean Sea. There's Nicaragua, there's Belize, there's the Yucatan Peninsula, there's Cancun. So right in this spot, the far northwest Caribbean Sea develops on Saturday, then moves across the Yucatan into the Gulf of Mexico, and the American model puts a strengthening tropical system of one strength or another off the southern or middle Texas coast as we head into Monday afternoon. Now on this type of a track, let's just say it were to go into Corpus Christi, they would have the full force of whatever the winds became, but Houston and the upper Texas coast would be on the dirty side of that storm. That's always going to be the right-hand side of the storm to motion. So look at the way it's going, look to the right, that's the dirty side. You just get all this tropical moisture from the Gulf slung into the upper Texas coast. So this type of an outcome, the GFS Monday, would be a flash flooding threat for the Houston-Galveston area. Let's take a look at the European model. It also develops a storm in the Western Caribbean over the weekend. We go into Sunday, and Monday it has a strengthening tropical system. But this solution is very different. It develops a tropical system of one strength or another and moves it into the central Louisiana coast. So on this type of an outcome, let's look to the right-hand side to motion. It would be moving due north. Look to the right. There's the dirty side, and it's New Orleans and Slidell and even Mobile Bay. So this would put Mississippi and Louisiana under the threat for flash flooding. And Houston, we'd be on the weak side. We'd get a northerly breeze. We'd get a few scattered showers, but this wouldn't be bad for us at all. So we've got two completely different outcomes from two of the models that we lean heavily on. The problem is we've got a spread all the way from Brownsville to perhaps New Orleans, and there's just no way to sharpen the pencil on this forecast right now. So we have to kind of be prepared for one outcome or the other. Here's what we know. Tropical waves developing in the Caribbean, likely to move into the Gulf, increasing rain chances this weekend. This is going to bring a lot of moisture with it either way. But what we don't know is how strong that system will eventually become, nor do we know the exact track or where the heaviest rain will fall, because we don't know the exact track. So much is going to depend on the exact track, either east or west of the Houston area, as to whether or not we get a flooding situation or not. So much of this is going to depend on the upper level wind flow. This is the European model. This is at 500 millibars. And for the past several days, we've had this big ridge of high pressure sitting right over Texas, big mountain of air. It's high pressure, but think of it as a big Colorado Rocky Mountain. This is the mountain of air that pushed Grace right across the southern Gulf and would not allow it to turn north. These storms can't climb the mountain. They get swept up in that flow around that high pressure area, and that swept Grace into Mexico. That mountain of air protected Texas, Louisiana, and the United States from a Grace landfall and exposed Mexico to it. Well, that whole situation is going to change. And as we look ahead in time, we go into Saturday and Sunday, that high pressure ridge, that mountain of air breaks down. In fact, it splits. What this is going to do is open up a weakness or a channel in between those two mountains. The mountains split, you've got a valley in the middle. These tropical systems want to take the path of least resistance. So this is going to be the path of least resistance. And so that's why both models have a system moving northwest and eventually north. However, the exact solution as to where this storm, the center of it, actually ends up going is still up in the air. It could be further to the west, which would put Houston and the Texas coast in direct play. It could be further east, putting Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, even Florida on the dirty side and in play. And it's just too early to be able to focus that tightly with that much resolution on the outcome of this system at this point. One thing that looks likely, whether or not it goes east or west of the Houston area, this is going to drag in a tremendous amount of tropical moisture. That's where the bright red colors are. This is happens to be the American model solution, but the European model also does the same thing, just brings in a ton of moisture. So rain chances will be going up regardless over the weekend into early next week. It just depends on the eventual track to what magnitude the rainfall becomes for Houston-Galveston. So as we look at the 7-day for Houston-Galveston, now we're going to begin to see rain chances increase tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday as that high pressure mountain breaks down. It will allow for scattered showers to become more numerous each afternoon. That's how you know that high pressure mountain's breaking down. And then as we head into Sunday and Monday, just for the moment, I'm leaving it at a 60% chance for rain or thunderstorms. But this is where the forecast will probably have some dramatic changes, either much drier or much wetter, depending on the eventual outcome of whatever is trying to form that and whatever storm it names, either Ida or Julian, the two next names on the list. So this one looks likely to become either Ida or Julian as it moves into the Western Gulf, Western Caribbean, and Southern Gulf of Mexico. That's where we stand right now. I think really the bottom line is, like me, stay close to the forecast. Watch us at least once a day, probably best once in the morning, once in the evening, twice a day. We're on at 4:30. Of course, you can watch the 10 o'clock news. Mia and Len and I are always there with Jason, and we'll give you the complete breakdown on what's going down. We'll look at both these model runs. Next 24, 36 hours, we should begin to get, I'm hoping, the spaghetti plots beginning to run, so we'll have some guidance from the Hurricane Center. At some point, probably end of the week, they'll begin to fly the high altitude mission to measure the atmosphere ahead of the storm. That will hopefully help the models tighten up and sharpen the pencil on that forecast, but that's still 2 or 3 days away. Until then, our next live update is going to be on the TV side on KHOU 11 News at 10 o'clock. I'll have the updated computer models. We'll look at both the American and the GFS. We'll see you then live on KHOU 11 News at 10.